Hi, I'm Matt with Mainstreet Medina. Welcome to another edition of Medina Minute. Today we're going to sit down and talk with a few friends from around town and learn about their stories and their business. Come on in and join me. All right, well, Katie, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me today with Medina Minute.
Thank you so much for having me.
Katy Fuerst, new executive director of Feeding Medina County.
Yes.
How many months been on the job now?
Oh, well, it's March now, so two full months have gone by.
Oh my gosh. Katy, how did you end up in Medina in this position?
That is a good question. So I've been in the nonprofit sector now for about 13 years.
Okay.
And last year, actually a year ago to the date, my husband and I were getting ready to move. And so I came up on my memories on my phone today that this was the first day we ever walked in our house.
Oh, cool.
So,
congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Very cool. We originally were looking kind of east of Cleveland. So we were living in Shaker for the past 12 years.
Yeah.
And then I realized, why would I go east when my dad's already south? And so I would be making my 3.5-hour drive closer to a 4.5-hour drive.
Right.
And we have friends that moved from the Cleveland area to Hinckley. And they said, you know what, look at Medina County, you're gonna love it. They know that I love that small town feel.
Sure.
And so we started looking here in the county, and the first house that we went in was in Sharon, and we just fell in love with it.
Nice.
So here we are.
So did you grow up in the Cleveland area? Or you grew up on the east side?
I didn't grow up on the east side. My husband did. I grew up on the west side.
Okay.
But, so I actually have family in Lodi and in Homerville here.
Yeah.
So I've definitely come down here all the time for family parties, and I've loved it. And you know, we ended up settling here. It's just perfect.
What did you do? You said you're in nonprofits 13 years. What did you do previously to Feeding Medina County?
So right before coming here, I was the director of programming and community engagement, which was quite a mouthful.
Yes.
At HFLA of Northeast Ohio. So that's another nonprofit.
Okay.
They provide interest-free loans for people who just can't access conventional financing.
Oh, wow.
And it was the perfect role because it really combined development with programming. And so to me, that was the perfect mix to get me to where I needed to be to become an executive director, which was the ultimate goal.
Okay.
So I'm finishing my master's of nonprofit administration,
Very
and I'll
cool.
graduate in 2 months from John Carroll. Yes, so excited.
Nice.
And so, you know, once I started the program 2 years ago, I said, it is time. I've got to find something, you know, and really move into that CEO exec role. When we moved here, I said, I've got to work in Medina County. I don't want to go into Cleveland. I don't want to go into Akron. I want to live in and serve my community. And so I was on a mission to find something.
Very cool. Tell me a little bit about your personal passions and your mission. So have you always been interested in nonprofits and more social service, or where does that come from?
That's a really interesting question. And I always joke that when I was in high school, we had to take this quiz or some kind of a standardized test.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to tell you what your career would be. So, you know, I fill it all in. I'm very careful to bubble in my circles, and I get my results back in whatever, 2-3 weeks. It says you would be best suited as a bus driver, a geologist, or a nun. Now, I did go to Catholic school, so I do think it may have been a ploy to try and just convert folks to become priests or nuns.
Those are really random career choices.
It was very random.
A nun or a geologist or a bus driver?
Also, I am not very prone to math and science, so I was like, there's no way this is accurate. But the more I think about it, like the older that I got in my career and as I worked, I realized, okay, a nun does live a life of service.
Right.
And so that's something that I have to have a sense of purpose.
Okay.
I remember working in my 20s while I was going to Cleveland State at a pet store, and I was the store manager. I was making a ridiculous amount of money for a 20-year-old. But I remember just sitting there and saying, I have no meaning in this work. There's no meaning to what I'm doing. I'm putting dog toys on a wall, and in a month, new dog toys will come, and I'll have to move these and then put up new ones. And I cannot do that for the rest of my working life. And so from there, I switched to the nonprofit sector, and I fell in love with it. It's challenging, and because we've got to work with, we serve the community.
Right.
We've got to raise funds from the community to put back into the community. And I like that puzzle piece and that challenge.
Is that something that maybe your parents taught you, or did you grow up like with a service model, or how did that come about? How did you decide, I really want to be part of the community and support the community?
Honestly, I don't know. I would say my parents definitely, they went to church and they were certainly active in that aspect, but not ever to the point of having the time to volunteer like their time or their service. That's something that I honestly have no idea where it comes from. It's just innate, it's in me, it's something that I've always wanted to do.
Sure, and it kind of showed up on the bubble test.
It did, it showed right up on that bubble test.
Hysterical.
Unless they were lying to me, but it makes a great story.
So you've been in Medina for a year.
Yes.
What was it about this county and this community that you drove in and said, wow, this is where I want to raise my family?
So I've always loved like that hometown rural kind of feel. It's far enough from the cities that I don't feel like I can reach out and just touch my neighbor's house.
Right.
But that everyone is so friendly and kind and welcoming.
Yeah.
And so just driving through, I was like, I have to live here. I remember when we were coming from our house in Shaker out to the house in Sharon, and we were driving down 162 Sharon Copley.
Okay, yeah.
And just coming out of the city, I said, oh my gosh, Mark, my husband, I said, I feel like I can breathe. Like, this is where I need to live.
Sure.
And so that was it for me.
Nice. What do your kids think about living down here? I mean, Shaker, it's a beautiful area, beautiful homes, great parks, cool people. This is a big change for them as well.
It is a very big change for them, but I will say, my kids are 11, the boys just had birthdays, so I can't remember. 11, 8, and 6. Poor guys, I know, I'm sorry. And they're kindergarten, 2nd, and 6th grade.
Okay.
And so I talked it up for about a year or two. We knew we were going to move. I said, guys, this is happening, get used to it.
Yeah.
We tried to hype it up. So like once we knew we were coming out here, I drove them to the house and drove past it and said, look, here's the school you'll go to. Here's the middle school. Look at this.
Yeah.
And so they did get excited about it. I guess the bonus of moving during a pandemic was, hey, it's not like they were ripped out of school or anything.
That's true.
They were still stuck in their online courses. Shaker and Highland spoke with each other and decided they could stay in Shaker schools through the end of the year.
Oh, that's cool.
So it would have been really weird. I think it was just very unprecedented times to have to uproot a child from their online courses at one district to another. So they finished out the year. And then of course, they really haven't been seeing anyone. So the only difficult part was getting new friends. But once the school year started, that kind of alleviated too. And because everyone had been stuck at home since like last year, everybody felt new. So it was good. It was an okay move.
Yeah.
And because a lot of folks did move during the pandemic when the rates were so low too, there's a lot of new kids that were in the district and in their schools. So they didn't feel alone at all.
That's really cool.
It is. And they really love, having a yard. Our neighbor behind us is amazing. He's got 8 acres.
Oh, wow.
And so they just hike in the woods, they explore. He lets them run all over his property too. So they had a really easy transition in that there's a lot to look at, to explore, and to do.
Nice. When you moved here, you said you wanted to become an executive director in nonprofit world. What led you to Feeding Medina County?
So I was, of course, searching for new employment. I told my employer around this time or so last year, hey, I'm going to be leaving, consider this just a warning, a heads up.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, I wanted to find something once we settled in the community. So it was a really long process.
Okay.
I would say I was actively looking at employers and positions since May. And I want to say the Feeding Medina County must have popped up late summer, early fall.
Right.
And I saw the posting. I said, oh my gosh, this is it. I've got to do it. I literally stopped what I was doing, wrote up my cover letter, dusted off that resume, sent it on in, and started the process with them. And actually, this is terrible. I totally forgot about it because so much time had passed, which I understand. It's a big position to fill, and you're going to take your time. But when they called me, I said, oh my gosh, or it was an email. I said, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So I started the process and interviewing, and I really instantly, I could feel the passion that all of the board members and the committee members had for the organization. And I just felt like I was home. I said, this is it. This is where I've got to be.
Very cool.
It was.
What about the mission of Feeding Medina County really resonates with you? Because, I mean, it's being an executive director as a nonprofit, it's a tough job.
It is.
But in what you do in particular, you're raising funds to put food on the table for families that don't have it.
Absolutely.
So super important work, but what does that say to you in your heart and inside of you?
Yeah, well, it really strikes a chord with me. So I like to tell people two stories, and they're very brief, don't worry. But food insecurity, it touches everyone. It can touch everyone's life.
Right.
It's not the same thing as hunger. So when you think hunger, you're thinking like sad videos of children with distended bellies, and you have a certain image in your mind. Food insecurity simply means that you don't have the financial ability to provide food that's going to give you proper nourishment and sustenance, and that you don't always know like what you're going to do about food.
Right.
I've always worked with people that are in like crisis mode, and I know that they live for the day. They're getting through today, and they'll worry about tomorrow. Right. And so the reason it strikes a chord with me is that I saw that Feeding Medina County focuses specifically on children and on seniors, but also on everyone.
Right.
So I remember, and this just broke my heart, I remember going to my grandmother's house, and once my grandfather died, it was just her, and she's living on her fixed income. And I remember bringing my kids over, and she would always apologize and say, oh, I just don't have any snacks in the house. I don't get paid till the beginning of the month. And so I always at that point said, well, I'll just bring, snacks with me when we go so she doesn't feel bad.
Right.
And then I would just leave them like, oh, Grandma, you just hang on to that. We're okay.
Yeah.
But even more so than that, which that touches me greatly, was when my husband and I had our daughter, we were young, we were 24, just had been married for about 2 years, and I stopped working for about a year.
Okay.
Because I wanted to be home with her. She had some digestive issues, which required very expensive formula.
Gotcha.
Because my husband was still working, we never qualified for like WIC or SNAP or anything.
Oh, wow, okay.
But these little mini cans of formula cost $30.
Oh my gosh.
And by the time she was like 5-6 months, I would say she went through about 4 of those in a month.
Wow.
So that's expensive.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And when you're living on, I don't know, probably my husband was making $30,000 at the time, and we were then a family of 3. I remember going to like Giant Eagle, Marks, whatever, with $50 and saying, okay, we already bought her formula, and this is what we have for the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
So we would eat like the worst of the worst, ramen noodles or just tuna noodle casserole every day because that's what we could afford.
Exactly.
And so that's something that I realized, anyone can be in that situation, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
And so when I saw Feeding Medina County's mission, I said, I've got to be a part of that because I know that, that's a real issue. And I know that Feeding Medina County is making a huge difference. And it's not just one little targeted area, it's the whole county. And that's amazing to me because it's a very diverse, different county. We're looking at Medina proper, as I call it. We're like a little mini suburb, but we still got that hometown feel, but you can walk and you can get places. When you're out in other parts of the county, like Lodi and Homerville, depending on where you are, you could be in a food desert if you don't have transportation and you can't get to the nearest store. So I really liked that. I thought it was kind of an interesting challenge to say, how can we really serve this county and what can we do to step it up?
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And it's something I know that I talked about with your predecessor, Sandy Hinkle. Food insecurity is not something that we generally acknowledge in this county.
Right.
I don't think it's anything that we put aside, but it's just not present. So I appreciate, Sandy, both Sandys, and then certainly you bringing that to the forefront. What kind of plans do you have for the future to raise the visibility or raise the service? Like you said, there are parts of our county that are very rural and secluded from cities.
You're right, absolutely. So that was one of my first priorities, is raising visibility and also improving and expanding our services. We're doing great things, but we can do more. And the community has been very supportive of us throughout the pandemic and beyond.
Right.
And so in my mind, it's our duty to rise up to the occasion and do more. So Right now, as you know, we do the community-wide distributions at the fairgrounds. Those are held once a month on the third Thursday in the morning, 7:30 to 9. But we're going to start doing a second monthly distribution.
Nice.
And it's going to be out of Medina. It's going to be in one of those more rural parts. We just are in the process now of signing the contract, so I won't go
That's
into
cool.
great detail yet,
Yeah.
but very soon there will be some press releases talking about that.
Cool.
And so we'll be doing twice monthly distributions, which I'm just thrilled about.
That's fantastic. And I think, I don't know, when you and I first met, I don't know if you remember if we talked about, because we live in the city or close to the city, it's also the county seat. Sometimes we take for granted that all of the services are right here.
Yes.
But if we're in Lodi or Homerville, I mean, it's a hike to get there.
It's a hike,
you know?
absolutely. And I would feel like my heart was breaking after we had a distribution. And we would get calls from folks who would say, oh, I couldn't make it to the fairgrounds,
Yeah.
or I don't have transportation, or I'm working or getting my kids on the bus. So we were very cognizant, and I will say my staff are total rock stars. Like,
awesome.
they have been nothing but welcoming and on board with all of the crazy changes I've proposed. Nothing really crazy, but all the extra work I've proposed.
Yeah.
And they've committed and said, yeah, we'll do an evening distribution. So when we do
cool.
that second distribution, it's going to be from 4 p.m. until 6 p.m.
Great.
to be more, aware of the fact that people are working or
Right.
they've got kiddos to get to and from school. And I'm really excited about that.
That's cool.
And very grateful
Yeah.
for my staff and board for saying, yes, let's go ahead and do this.
Being an executive director can be a consuming job.
Yes.
I don't know that it's fair to say it's a 24/7 job, but it's like a 26.
Yeah,
A lot.
I would agree.
Do you ever get a chance to just relax, calm down, escape, read hobbies? Like, how
Yeah.
do you come down to just being Katy, the mom and the wife?
I have to say, I'm a person who traditionally does struggle with that, because you're right. When you're in any kind of an executive role, you're always on. You know,
Yeah.
if you see somebody, you're talking and you're representing your organization. However, I also recognize that I don't want to burn myself out. And so I do take time, to hike in the property behind
cool.
us. There's
Yeah.
a really cool waterfall behind us and some
wow.
ledges. I know, it's amazing. It's basically like a miniature Nelson's Ledges.
Awesome.
So I'll hike down there with the kiddos, and that's a nice, take time with them and take some pictures. Now that they're getting older, they like to mess around with photography and use my camera. So
Cool.
we've taken some cool photos of the falls and when it's frozen over. On Fridays, I go horseback riding, which my
wow.
board did not believe me, but I do. So my daughter and I will go and ride horses together just to kind of relax, chill,
Yeah.
take some of the stress of the week off and get some time to connect with each other.
You said you grew up on the west side of Cleveland, but it sounds like there's a little bit of a tomboy in you?
Definitely.
Okay.
There definitely is. Yeah, I've been big into sports my entire life.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously a big animal lover, if you're conveying that from our previous conversation and the
Right.
horses and everything. Yeah, I mean, I love to live an active lifestyle, and tomboy has been used to describe me more than once.
Okay. And I don't even know where that phrase comes from, and I hope it's not offensive to people.
Nah,
But
yeah,
it's
I
just
don't-
it's interesting that growing up in the city, but you like to do nature and you like to be out and about and stuff.
I remember coming out to, so it's my grandmother's sister that lives in Homerville. And so we would come out to her property, and she's got about 4 acres. And that was the highlight of being a kid, was running back through this cornfield and looking at the cows that live behind her. And my cousin and I would munch on the corn. And I remember coming back out of the field the one time, out of the woods, and my mom goes, "That corn is grown for cows." I said, "But it's still corn." And I just knew that's where I feel most comfortable. That's just
Yeah.
where I need to be. There's sheep that live across the street from me now, and it's amazing. I come outside and I go, it smells like a farm. And that's
awesome.
that's perfect.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
It is. It is.
How are you and your husband sharing your passion for the community and nonprofits and service? How are you sharing that with your kids?
My kids, I will say, are really probably pretty lucky to grow up where they're just immersed in nonprofit culture and life. My husband is always very supportive of whoever I'm working for or whatever I want to do. He's never said, no, we can't do that, or no, we can't donate or make a basket for this raffle or that raffle. And we always are very cognizant of trying to instill our values into our kids. So they're always a part of it. You know, if we
that's cool.
if we go to a family-friendly fundraiser, they're going to come with us.
Nice.
My kids, when I told them that I was interviewing for Feeding Medina County, my boys go, oh, we know Feeding Medina County, because they would see the signs for the weekender bags in their school. They're like, Mom, you're going to be famous. So it was really cool that it just made me laugh that they already knew what the organization was without fully knowing.
Yeah.
But they love it. My daughter keeps asking, you know, when can I come and pack bags? And I said, well, when there's an opening, because we've got volunteers beating our door down, which is, again,
that's fantastic.
Great problems to have.
Right.
I'm enthralled with how active our community is and how open and excited they are about what we're doing here, because you could not ask for a better community to support you.
Yeah. Is there a dream vacation you would love to take with your family? Like somewhere that's been on your bucket list that you want to show the kids or have that experience with your family?
Yes, it might happen this summer, but I don't know because of the whole COVID situation.
Right.
So I laugh because you said I'm a tomboy, and it shows. I also always joke that I was born in Texas, but my parents moved back up here when I was 2, but I'm like really a country girl at heart.
Yeah.
So my dream vacation is to take them out west. I love the Rockies.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I just think it's so beautiful out there. And so what I really want to do, you know, you could either go to Disney World or you could go spend a week on a ranch. And you could ride horses and do cattle drives and go through the mountains. That is what I want to do. So we always try. I love just exploring new places. We always try to take our kids on vacations where they're having like an experience. So they've been to like Acadia, or was it Acadia? Yeah, National Park in Maine. They've been there. They've been to the Pacific Coast, and now it's time to go west, because I feel like they're old enough to like not get exhausted hiking and actually keep their balance on a horse. That's what I want to do.
How do you think those experiences will help shape them? Because I think you're right. Growing up, you do things, you might take a vacation, but I think it's things in which you participate that you remember. What do you want them to take from that?
I want them just to see how beautiful our country is, and to meet different people from different walks of life, and to know that, you know, we're all connected in some way. Mm-hmm. And so I hope that that's something that they'll always remember as, you know, Mom and Dad, you know, they didn't take us anywhere fancy, but they took us hiking and we spent a week in the national park, or we spent a week riding horses and doing something together where we could bond as a family unit, but also like meet new people that we would have never met. Right. So I hope that that's something that they always like treasure and keep with them as they get older.
You're a self-confessed tomboy, or I called you out as that.
You did.
And you like nature. Are you also, do you like being part of the earth? Are you a gardener at all? Is that a passion of yours, or more you're happy to walk on it?
I would like to be a better gardener. I have some plants. They are still alive that I've kind of taken in during this whole pandemic, and we'll see. My husband has some good goals to kind of create a garden in our yard this year. And I hope that it works out. I will say, being the busy executive director,
it's a lot of time.
I can be very bad about remembering to, you know, water said plants, but I do. I have the best of intents. I would love to be a better gardener and take care of them.
That's fantastic. Katy, thank you so much for sharing your time today. We appreciate learning more about you and about Feeding Medina County, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you too, Matt.
Thanks.
Thanks.